I kissed a beta by mistake. Next day, 500 wolves ringed my castle, and I became Omega. 7 years I wore the crown, and 7 years I suffocated beneath its weight. My name is Kate Bennett, though few remember that now. They call me Luna Branca, Queen of Ashford Kingdom, as if the title has swallowed the woman whole. Perhaps it has. I stand at the window of my tower chamber in this castle of stone and silver, watching the Swiss mountains darken under the November sky of 1412, and I wonder if I have forgotten how to be anything other than ornament, obligation, sacrifice. The cold seeps through the ancient glass, through my silk gown, into my bones. I have been cold for 7 years, cold in this marriage, cold in this role, cold in the bed I sleep in alone, while my husband, King Tyler Ashford, sleeps 3 chambers away with the door locked between us. He has never loved me. I knew that on our wedding day when he looked at me during the ceremony, with eyes as empty as winter wells. Our marriage was political, an alliance between his alpha bloodline and my lunar magic. He needed my power. I cannot even remember now what I needed. Safety, perhaps. Purpose. A place in a world that fears women with magic in their veins. What I got was a gilded cage, and a husband who treats me like a tool he keeps in a locked drawer. Every morning before dawn, I wake in darkness. The castle still sleeps. Even the servants have not yet stirred. I dress myself, no lady's maid. Tyler forbids anyone from seeing this ritual, and descend the spiral staircase to the throne room. My bare feet make no sound on the stone. The November air bites through my thin nightgown, but I do not shiver anymore. I have learned not to feel. The lunar scepter waits on its pedestal beside Tyler's throne. It is beautiful, that cursed thing. Silver and moonstone, carved with ancient runes that pulse faintly in the pre-dawn darkness. It was forged specifically for me, Tyler said, when he presented it on our wedding night. A gift, a way for me to serve the kingdom more efficiently. A prison. I place my hands on the cold metal, and I pour myself into it. My lunar magic flows from my palms, my chest, the very core of my being. Silver light fills the scepter until it blazes like a trapped star. The magic tears out of me, not painfully, not anymore. I have done this so many times my body knows how to empty itself without resistance, and when it is done, I am hollow, depleted. The scepter hums with stolen power. Tyler's power. That is what everyone believes. They think their Alpha King protects the kingdom's borders with his own strength. They praise him in council meetings. They sing ballads about his magical prowess. They bow before him in gratitude. No one knows the truth. No one knows that every morning his queen drains herself into a scepter so he can touch it at midday and absorb the magic I have given, so he can stand on the battlements and send silver light across the mountains, reinforcing the wards that keep our enemies at bay. He is the sun. I am the shadow he casts. I return to my chambers before the castle wakes. I sleep until noon, recovering from the drain. When I finally dress and descend to the great hall, Tyler is already there, surrounded by his advisors. He does not look at me. He never looks at me. I take my seat at the far end of the table, the queen's seat, ornate and uncomfortable, and I listen to discussions of trade routes and border disputes in grain stores. When I offer an opinion, Tyler speaks over me. When I suggest a strategy, he dismisses it without consideration. The queen is tired, he says to his counselors, his voice flat. She has been resting all morning. Perhaps she should return to her chambers. The council exchanges glances. Some pity me. Some smirk. None defend me. I smile. I have perfected this smile. Serene, untouchable, queenly. It reveals nothing of the scream building in my throat. At dinner, I eat alone in my chambers. Tyler dines in the great hall with his men, their laughter echoing up through the stones. Sometimes I hear women's voices too, ladies of the court, visiting duchesses. I do not ask questions. I learned early that questions earn cold silence or colder fury. At night, I return to my tower. Tyler never comes to my bed. In 7 years of marriage, he has touched me exactly once, a brief, perfunctory kiss after our wedding vows, his lips cold and quick against mine. Nothing since. No intimacy. No warmth, no children. The court whispers about it, of course. They wonder why the queen has not produced an heir. They speculate about my fertility, my health, my worthiness. Tyler does nothing to stop the rumors. In fact, he feeds them. 3 days ago, the Duchess of Lorraine visited, a formidable woman with sharp eyes and sharper tongue. She cornered me after the midday meal, her smile false and cutting. "Your Majesty," she said, loud enough for half the hall to hear. 7 years wed and still no prince or princess. How unfortunate. Have you consulted the royal physicians? Surely there must be some treatment for your condition. My condition. As if I am ill. As if I am broken. I open my mouth to respond, to explain that there is no condition, that my husband has never once attempted to give me a child, that the failure is his, not mine. But Tyler appeared at my elbow before I could speak. "The Queen has complications," he said smoothly, his hand heavy on my shoulder. Not comforting. Controlling. "The physicians are doing all they can. We remain hopeful." The lie fell from his lips like poisoned honey. The Duchess made sympathetic noises. The courtiers turned away, already composing the gossip they would spread. The Queen is barren. The Queen is defective. The poor king, trapped in a fruitless marriage. Tyler's fingers dug into my shoulder. A warning. I smiled my perfect smile and nodded graciously and said nothing. But inside, something cracked. That night, I stood at my window for hours. The moon rose full and bright over the mountains, calling to me the way it always does. Lunar magic is tied to the moon's cycles. I am strongest when she is full, weakest when she is dark. Tonight she blazed like a beacon, and I felt her pull in my blood, my bones, my soul. I have served faithfully for 7 years. I have given my magic, my voice, my identity. I have been the perfect queen, obedient, silent, self-sacrificing, and I have never been more miserable. The moon's light touched my face, warm despite the November cold, and suddenly I could not breathe inside this tower, this castle, this life. I needed air. I needed space. I needed to remember what it felt like to exist as Kate, not Luna Branca, not the empty vessel who poured herself into a scepter each dawn, not the failure who could not give her husband an heir he did not want. Just Kate, just for one day. I made my decision in an instant. I would leave, only for a day, only to walk in the forest, to feel the earth under my feet, to remember I am a woman, not a symbol. Tyler would not even notice I was gone. He never checked on me, never sought my company. I could slip away, breathe, and return before anyone realized. Just one day of freedom. Surely I deserved that much. I moved quickly, before I could change my mind. From the bottom of my wardrobe, I pulled a servant's cloak I had hidden months ago, thick wool the color of mud. I braided my silver-white hair, the mark of lunar magic, inherited from my mother, and tucked it under the hood. I took nothing but a small dagger, more for utility than defense. I was not planning to fight. I was planning to disappear. The castle has secret passages. Every old fortress does. I discovered them years ago when I was still new enough to this marriage to explore, to hope for hidden rooms where Tyler and I might meet privately, romantically. I found passages instead, escape routes for sieges, tunnels for spies. I memorized them. I told no one. Now I use them. I slipped through the hidden door behind my wardrobe, down the narrow stairs carved into the castle walls. The stone was damp under my hands, slick with centuries of moisture. I smelled mildew and rat droppings and old fear. I descended in total darkness, counting steps by memory, until I reached the lowest level. The door opened into the wine cellars. From there, it was simple to cross to the kitchens, then out the scullery door into the kitchen garden. No one saw me. Or if they did, they saw only a serving woman leaving early, perhaps visiting a lover in the village. I used a whisper of lunar magic to blur my presence, to make eyes slide past me without focusing. It was a small spell, barely noticeable, and it cost me nothing. Not like the mornings when I emptied my entire soul into that cursed scepter. By the time dawn broke over the mountains, I was deep in the forest. The air tasted different out here. Clean, sharp with pine and snow and the mineral scent of stone. I walked for hours, following deer trails through the trees, climbing higher into the foothills. Early snow covered the ground in patches, pristine and untouched. No courtiers here, no council meetings, no Tyler dismissing me with a wave of his hand. Just me and the forest, and the sky turning pale gold with morning light. I felt my lungs expand for the first time in years. I felt my shoulders drop, tension I had not known I carried releasing vertebra by vertebra. I felt alive. I walked until the sun climbed high, until I was miles from the castle, until I could no longer see its towers through the trees. Good. Let it disappear. Let me disappear with it, just for a few hours. Then I realized the forest had gone silent. I stopped on the trail, suddenly alert. No birds, no wind. Even the sound of my own breathing seemed muffled, absorbed by the trees. The hair on the back of my neck rose. I had wandered into the cursed section of the woods. Every kingdom has one. Places where old magic pools and stagnates, where the boundary between worlds grows thin. Children are told stories about these places. Travelers avoid them. Only fools or the desperate enter. I had been so focused on my freedom that I had not been paying attention. I turned to retrace my steps, but the trail behind me looked different now, darker. The trees seemed to lean inward, their branches skeletal and reaching. Snow that had been pristine moments ago was now gray and dirty, as if decades of rot had occurred in seconds. A figure emerged from the shadows between the trees. My hand went to the dagger at my belt, but I knew before I touched it that the blade would be useless. This was not a threat steel could stop. The woman, if she could be called that, was ancient. Her body was twisted, spine curved like a question mark, limbs too long and jointed in wrong places. Her skin was the color of old parchment, left in damp cellars, mottled with liver spots, and something that might have been moss. But her eyes were black pits that held no light, no reflection, no humanity. She circled me slowly, her movements insectile. Sniff, sniff, sniff. Her nose, or the collapsed cavity where a nose should have been, twitched as she inhaled my scent. Then she laughed. It was the worst sound I have ever heard, like bones scraping together, like the death rattle of something that refused to die. Luna Branca, she hissed, her voice wet and thick. The queen who gives herself away. I can smell your magic, girl. I can taste it on the air. You reek of power and sacrifice and foolishness. Ice flooded my veins. She knew what I was. She knew who I was. What do you want? My voice came out steadier than I felt. The witch, because that is what she was. I knew it with the certainty of prey recognizing predator. Smiled. Her teeth were black stumps and rotting gums. Your face, she said simply. Your magic, your life, your place. I will take your appearance, your identity, your throne. I will become you, and I will live in that castle, stealing power from that foolish king who thinks himself strong, and I will finally have what I deserve. She lunged. I threw up my hands instinctively, and lunar magic exploded from my palms. Silver fire lit the cursed forest, bright enough to turn the gray snow white again. The witch screamed and fell back, but she was laughing too, laughing as she countered with her own magic. Dark magic, shadow magic, the opposite of everything I carried. Shadows with claws raked across my face. I felt my cheeks split open, hot blood running down my jaw. Roots erupted from the frozen ground, wrapping around my ankles, my thighs, pulling me down. I burned them away with moonlight, but more came, always more. The trees themselves seemed to attack, branches whipping toward me like weapons. I fought back with everything I had. I had spent 7 years pouring my magic into that scepter, giving it away, draining myself to nothing. But I still had reserves. I still had power Tyler had never touched, had never known existed. I called on the moon, even though it was hidden by daylight, and she answered. White light erupted from my body, so bright I could not see, so hot the snow around me melted in seconds. The witch's shadows disintegrated like smoke in wind. The roots turned to ash, but the witch was old, older than the castle, older than the kingdom. She had centuries of dark magic stored in her twisted body, and she threw it all at me. The forest became a battlefield. Trees exploded. The ground cracked. Snow melted and refroze into jagged spears of ice. I shattered them with blasts of silver fire. The witch sent shadows to strangle me. I burned them away. She conjured illusions. Tyler's face, sneering, telling me I was worthless. My mother's voice, screaming that I had failed. I pushed through them, but magic costs. Every spell drained something, and I had already given so much that morning, filling the scepter before dawn. I was fighting on fumes. The witch knew it. She could smell my exhaustion. Weak, she crooned, circling me as I panted, my hands shaking with effort. So weak, the queen who gives herself away. What is left of you, little moon? What is left after you have poured yourself into that scepter for a man who does not love you? Rage filled me. Pure, white-hot, cleansing rage. Not at her. At Tyler. At 7 years of draining myself for someone who treated me like furniture. At a marriage that hollowed me out. At a life where I was powerful and invisible, essential and worthless. I screamed. I did not mean to. I did not plan it, but the scream tore out of me, and with it came every ounce of lunar magic I had left. White light erupted from my body like a supernova. The witch did not even have time to scream. The light consumed her entirely. I felt her dark magic disintegrate, felt her ancient body crumble to ash, felt her essence scatter like dust on a wind that had not been blowing a moment before. The light faded. The forest fell silent. The witch was gone. Not even ash remained. I swayed. My knees buckled. I tasted copper, blood from where I had bitten my tongue. More blood ran from my nose, my ears. My vision darkened at the edges. I had used too much, pushed too far. I was empty, completely empty. This is how I die, I thought distantly, alone in a cursed forest, and Tyler will find my body and put on a show of mourning, and then he will find a new wife to drain. The thought should have frightened me. Instead, I felt relief. I collapsed. The snow was soft and cold against my cheek. I closed my eyes. Then I heard footsteps, heavy, crunching through snow. A man's footsteps. I tried to warn him. There might be more witches, more curses, but my voice would not work. My body would not move. I could only lie there, bleeding into the snow, waiting for whatever came next. Strong arms lifted me. I smelled pine and wood smoke and clean sweat. A deep voice murmured something I could not understand through the ringing in my ears. The arms cradled me against a broad chest. I felt the warmth of another body, the steady rhythm of a heartbeat that was not my own. Then consciousness left entirely, and I fell into darkness so deep, I did not know if I would ever find my way back. I woke to firelight and the smell of bread baking, and for the first time in 7 years, I did not want to open my eyes and face reality, because reality meant the castle. Reality meant Tyler. Reality meant the lunar scepter, and the endless draining and the cold stone walls that had become my entire world. But here, in this moment between sleep and waking, I was warm. I was safe. Someone was humming, a low, pleasant sound, tuneless but comforting. The crackle of fire, the smell of wood smoke and yeast and something herbal I could not name. I kept my eyes closed and pretended, just for a moment, that I was someone else, somewhere else. Anyone but Luna Branca, Queen of Nothing. "You're awake," said a voice. Male, deep, gentle. "Don't try to sit up yet. You've been unconscious for 2 days. 2 days." The words filtered through my foggy mind slowly. 2 days since the witch. 2 days since I collapsed in the snow. 2 days of... what? Where was I? I forced my eyes open. The light hurt. Not bright, just firelight. But after the darkness behind my eyelids, it felt like staring at the sun. I blinked, vision clearing slowly, and saw rough wooden beams above me. A ceiling that was not stone, not carved with royal crests, just simple logs chinked with moss and clay. Shadows danced across the wood as firelight flickered. I turned my head, slowly, because even that small movement made the world tilt, and saw the source of the voice. A man stood by the hearth, his back to me, working over a pot that hung from an iron hook. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a simple wool shirt and leather breeches. His dark hair was slightly too long, curling at his collar. His hands moved with practiced efficiency as he stirred whatever was in the pot. "Where am I?" My voice came out as a croak, my throat raw as if I had been screaming. Perhaps I had. I could not remember anything after the darkness took me in the forest. "My cabin," the man said. He ladled something into a wooden bowl and turned to face me. "About 5 miles north of where I found you. You're safe here." I looked at him properly then, and something in my chest tightened. He was handsome in an unpolished way. Strong features, a jaw dark with stubble, hazel eyes that held genuine concern. Not the cultivated beauty of court, where men wore velvet and perfume, and smiled with calculated charm. This man looked like he had been carved from the same wood as his cabin. Real, solid, present. He crossed to where I lay. On a low bed covered in furs, I realized, thick and soft and smelling faintly of pine, and knelt beside me. Up close, I could see the calluses on his hands, the small scars on his knuckles, working hands, honest hands. "I'm Ryan," he said simply. "Ryan Callahan. I'm a woodsman. I found you in the forest 3 days ago, bleeding and barely breathing. I brought you here. 3 days, not 2. I had lost time. Thank you," I whispered. My manners, trained into me since childhood, surfaced even through exhaustion. "I'm Kate." I gave him only my first name, not Bennett, certainly not Luna Branca. Just Kate. It felt strange on my tongue, That simple syllable. I could not remember the last time someone had called me just Kate. Kate, Ryan repeated, as if testing it. He smiled slightly. Can you sit up? You should eat something. You've had nothing but water for 3 days. He helped me sit, his hands careful on my shoulders, supporting my weight as if I were made of glass. I was not glass. I was a woman who had fought a witch and won. But I felt fragile now, hollowed out, and his gentleness made my eyes sting with unexpected tears. The soup was simple, broth with chunks of venison and root vegetables, thick with barley. It was the most delicious thing I had ever tasted, or perhaps I was simply starving. I ate slowly, each spoonful warming me from the inside, and Ryan watched with quiet satisfaction. You were hurt badly, he said when I finished. Cuts on your face and arms, burns on your palms. You kept muttering about shadows and witches. I thought you were delirious. I touched my cheek and felt the ridge of a healing wound under a bandage. Ryan had tended me, wrapped my injuries, kept me alive while I lay unconscious in his cabin. A stranger showing me more kindness in 3 days than my husband had in 7 years. I should go, I said, even though every part of me wanted to stay in this warm, simple place forever. My family will be worried. It was not entirely a lie. The castle would be in chaos. Tyler would be furious, not because I was gone, but because his source of magic had disappeared. The court would be scandalized. Search parties would be scouring the kingdom. Ryan nodded slowly. I assumed you'd want to leave as soon as you woke. But Kate, the whole kingdom is searching for someone. The queen went missing 4 days ago. Every village has soldiers asking questions, searching homes. I kept you hidden because I didn't know if you were running from something. Were you? My heart stopped. He did not know. He had saved the queen and did not know it. I'm not the queen, I said quickly. Too quickly. I was traveling. I got lost. Ryan studied me for a long moment. His eyes were kind, but not stupid. He knew I was lying, but instead of pressing, he simply nodded. All right, he said quietly. You were traveling. You got lost. And now you need to return home. I should have agreed, should have thanked him and left immediately, but the words that came out of my mouth were different. Could I stay? I asked. Just 3 more days, to recover my strength, then I'll go. Ryan hesitated. I saw the conflict on his face, the practical concern about search parties, about soldiers who might find me here and ask questions, weighed against something else. Compassion, maybe, or loneliness. His cabin was deep in the woods, isolated. Perhaps he had not spoken to another person in weeks. Why? He asked. If you have family waiting, why would you want to stay here? The question broke something inside me. I had held it together through 7 years of humiliation, through Tyler's coldness, and the court's whispers, and the endless draining of my magic. I had smiled and performed, and pretended everything was fine. But here, in this simple cabin with this kind stranger, I could not lie anymore. Because I don't want to go back, I whispered. The tears came then, hot and shameful. I'm trapped in a marriage without love. My husband doesn't want me. He's never touched me, never held me. He humiliates me in front of his court and blames me for things that are his fault. Everyone thinks I can't give him children, but the truth is he won't even try. And I thought if I disappeared for a few days, if I just vanished, maybe he would realize I have value. Maybe something would change. I was crying openly now, 7 years of suppressed grief pouring out. But nothing will change. I know that. He'll be angry I left, not because he missed me, but because I inconvenienced him. And I'll go back and everything will be exactly as it was, and I'll spend the rest of my life being invisible in my own home. Ryan said nothing for a long moment. Then he reached out and took my hand. His palm was warm and rough against mine. 3 days, he said quietly. You can stay 3 days. Those 3 days changed everything. Ryan did not ask questions, did not demand my story, or push for details I would not give. He simply made space for me in his life as naturally as breathing. On the first full day I was awake, he showed me how to chop wood properly, laughing kindly when my first swing nearly took off my own foot, then guiding my hands to the correct position on the axe handle, his hands over mine, his chest against my back, the easy intimacy of teaching. We walked in the forest, and he showed me tracks in the snow, deer, rabbit, fox, wolf. He named trees by their bark and buds. He taught me how to find north by looking at which side of the trees grew moss. Simple knowledge, practical, the kind no one bothers teaching queens. I soaked it up like parched earth drinking rain. He cooked simple meals and we ate together at his rough wooden table. Bread and stew and roasted game. Nothing fancy, nothing elaborate, just food that tasted like care. We talked for hours by the firelight. He told me about his life. Parents lost to fever when he was 16, leaving him this cabin and a small income from selling lumber to nearby villages. A quiet life, a simple life. He did not want power or wealth or status. He wanted only peace. "Don't you get lonely?" I asked on the second night, watching him whittle a piece of wood by the fire. His hands moved with unconscious skill, shaping something that might become a spoon or bowl. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but loneliness is better than being surrounded by people who don't see you." The words hit me like a blow. That was exactly it, exactly what I had been living, surrounded by a castle full of people who looked through me as if I were glass. "What about you?" Ryan asked, looking up from his carving. "What do you want, Kate?" No one had ever asked me that. Not once in 30 years of life. What do you want? Not what does the kingdom need? Not what would be proper or strategic or politically advantageous. What do you want? I opened my mouth to say I did not know, to deflect with some polite non-answer. But Ryan's eyes were steady on mine, genuinely curious, genuinely interested, and I found myself telling the truth. "I want to matter," I whispered. "Not for what I can give, not for what I can do for someone else. I want to matter just because I exist. I want someone to look at me and see me, not a tool or a disappointment or a failure. I want to be loved for being me, just me. Is that selfish?" "No," Ryan said softly. "That's human." On the second night, after we finished eating, Ryan grew quiet. I noticed him glancing at a wooden chest in the corner of the cabin, then away, then back again. "What is it?" I asked. He hesitated, then, almost shyly, said, "I write poetry. Sometimes, when I'm alone out here and the silence gets too heavy. It's not very good, but would you like to hear some? Would I like to hear poetry?" Tyler had never offered me anything like that. The court had musicians and performers, but their art was performance, not sharing. This felt different, personal, vulnerable. "Yes," I said. "Please." Ryan retrieved a bundle of papers from the chest. His handwriting was rough but legible, the letters formed with care by someone who had taught himself to read. He sat by the fire and read to me, simple verses about the forest, the changing seasons, the loneliness of winter and the hope of spring. His voice was low and soothing, the words unpolished but honest, genuine. I closed my eyes and listened, and felt something inside me that I thought had died years ago. Not desire, exactly. Not romance. Just connection. The simple, profound gift of someone sharing themselves without expecting anything in return. When he finished, I opened my eyes and found him watching me nervously. "Thank you," I said, and meant it with every fiber of my being. That was beautiful. He smiled, relieved, and something warm bloomed in my chest. That night, I lay awake on the bed of furs Ryan had insisted I keep while he slept on a pallet by the fire. I stared at the wooden beams above me and realized with creeping horror that I was falling in love with him, this kind, simple woodsman who asked nothing of me, who saw me as a woman, not a queen or a vessel or a disappointment, who made me laugh, who made me feel human, who read me poetry by firelight and taught me to find north by the stars. I was falling in love, and I could not have him, because I was Kate Bennett, Luna Branca, Queen of Ashford, and he was a woodsman, a beta, a commoner. There was no world in which our lives intersected beyond these 3 stolen days. The knowledge broke my heart, but I held it close anyway, this secret ache. Better to love and lose than never to feel anything at all. On the 3rd morning, I woke to find Ryan sitting at the table, writing. He glanced up when he heard me stir, and something flickered across his face. Nervousness, hope, fear. "I wrote something," he said. "Last night, after you fell asleep. I was watching you by the firelight, and I wrote this. For you." He handed me the paper. The ink was still slightly wet where he had blotted it. I read, "She came from nowhere, made of moonlight and secrets, a woman who forgot how to breathe, until the forest remembered for her. She will leave like dreams leave, suddenly, inevitably, leaving only the ache of wishing I could have kept her." My eyes blurred with tears. No one had ever created something for me. Tyler had never given me gifts, never written me letters, never even said my name with tenderness. And here was this woodsman, this stranger, writing poetry about me as if I were worth immortalizing in words. "Ryan," I whispered, but I did not know what to say after his name. How do you thank someone for seeing you, for treating you like a person, for giving you 3 days of humanity after 7 years of being a ghost? It's your last day, he said quietly. You need to go back. I know that. But I wanted you to have something, to remember that someone saw you. I wanted to tell him, wanted to explain that I was the queen he thought had fled north, that I was trapped in a castle with a husband who used me like a battery, that these 3 days were the only time I had felt alive since my wedding, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I folded the poem carefully and tucked it inside my dress, against my heart. We spent the last day doing ordinary things, walking in the forest one final time, chopping wood together, sharing a simple meal. Every moment felt precious, weighted with the knowledge that this was ending, that tomorrow I would go back to being Luna Branca, and he would return to his solitary life, and we would both remember these 3 days as a beautiful impossibility. As the sun began to set, I dressed in my servant's cloak. Ryan watched me silently, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he stood and offered me his arm. I'll walk you to the edge of the forest, he said. Make sure you get back safely. We walked in silence through the trees. Snow had begun to fall, thick, fat flakes that caught the last light and glittered like diamonds. The forest looked like something from a fairy tale, enchanted, liminal, a place where impossible things might happen. At the forest's edge, where the trees opened onto the road that led back to the castle, I stopped. Ryan stopped beside me. The snow fell around us in silence. I should have thanked him, should have said goodbye like a rational adult and walked away, but I could not leave without doing this one thing, one moment of truth before I returned to a life built entirely on lies. I turned to face him, rose on my toes, and kissed him. For one heartbeat, the world stood still. His lips were warm against mine, gentle, surprised. I felt his sharp intake of breath, felt his hands come up to steady me. Then the world exploded. Silver light erupted from my body like a breaking dam. I felt my lunar magic surge outward, no longer constrained by the daily draining into the scepter, no longer suppressed and controlled. It poured out of me in a wave of pure power, through my lips, through my hands where they clutched Ryan's shoulders, through every point where our bodies touched. The snow around us swirled into a vortex, whipped by winds that had not been blowing a moment before. The trees blazed with silver light. I heard Ryan gasp against my mouth, a sound of shock and pain and something else. His eyes flew open. They were no longer hazel. They were gold, burning, brilliant gold. Magic flooded into him, not from me exactly, from somewhere, as if my magic had unlocked a door inside him, and now something vast and ancient was pouring through. I felt his scent change, the subtle shift that marked the difference between beta and alpha. Power, dominance, strength. The kiss broke. We stared at each other, both breathless, both terrified, both awed. What? Ryan's voice came out hoarse. What was that? I knew. The knowledge crashed over me like a wave, undeniable and devastating. Mate bond, the moon goddess's gift, the rarest magic in existence. Fated mates, 2 souls destined to be together, marked by the lunar deity herself. Ryan Callahan was my mate, my true mate. And the magic I had poured into him through that kiss, through the mate bond snapping into place like a lock finding its key, had broken something inside him. A curse, I realized. Something that had been suppressing his true nature his entire life. Ryan Callahan was not beta. He was alpha. He had always been alpha, and my kiss had freed him. I'm sorry, I gasped, backing away. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't mean to. Kate, wait. But I was already running. I ran back into the forest, my servant's cloak flying behind me, snow crunching under my feet. Ryan called after me, but I did not stop. Could not stop, because I had just discovered my true mate, and I could never have him. I was married. I was queen. I belonged to Tyler by law and contract, and 7 years of vows. It did not matter that the moon goddess herself had chosen Ryan for me. It did not matter that my magic recognized him as home. I was not free. I ran until I could not hear Ryan's voice anymore. Then I kept running. I reached the castle as the sun set, slipping back through the hidden passages the same way I had left. My chambers were exactly as I had left them. No one had discovered my absence. No one had noticed I was gone. I stripped off the servant's cloak with shaking hands and dressed in one of my silk gowns. braided my hair in the elaborate style expected of queens, became Luna Branca again, tucking Kate away like a secret, like the folded poem pressed against my heart. That night, I did not sleep. I stood at my tower window and stared at the moon, full and bright and beautiful, and felt the mate bond pulling at me like a fishhook through my sternum. Ryan was out there somewhere, my mate, my true mate, and I would never see him again. The next morning, I woke to screaming. At first, I thought I was dreaming. But the screams continued, echoing up from the courtyard, along with shouts and the sound of running feet. Something was wrong. Something had happened. I threw on a dressing gown and ran to the window. The courtyard below was chaos. Soldiers ran in formation. Servants huddled in doorways. And surrounding the entire castle, pressed up against the walls like a living tide, were wolves. Hundreds of them. Maybe 500. More shifters than I had ever seen in one place. They did not attack. They simply stood there, silent and watchful, a wall of fur and teeth and golden eyes. And at their head, standing in human form, was Ryan Callahan. But he was not dressed as a woodsman anymore. He wore the leathers of an alpha commander, fitted black leather that marked him as pack leader, as warrior, as someone of rank and power. His dark hair was tied back. His eyes blazed gold even in human form. He looked like he had been born to lead armies. He stood at the castle gates, and he stared up at my tower window, at me, as if he could see me through stone and glass. My heart stopped. Then I heard more screaming, different screaming. 2 women's voices, shrill and excited, shouting from the courtyard. I looked down and saw them. 2 seamstresses I recognized vaguely from the village. They stood at the edge of the crowd of wolves, pointing up at my window, pointing at me, their voices carrying across the sudden silence. "That's her, the queen. We saw her. 3 days ago in the forest, kissing a beta, kissing him. We saw the magic. We saw everything." The words hit me like stones. No, this could not be happening. The entire courtyard went silent. Every eye turned toward my tower, toward me, the scandalous queen who had fled her castle in disguise and kissed a commoner in the forest while her husband searched for her. I saw Tyler emerge from the great hall, his face a mask of cold fury. I saw the royal advisors gathering. I saw nobles appearing on balconies, eager for the spectacle. And I saw Ryan, still staring up at me, his expression unreadable, the 500 wolves at his back, an army of shifters who had felt the moment his alpha power awakened, who had felt the mate bond snap into place between us, and had come to witness what happened next. I gripped the windowsill with both hands, my knuckles white. My world was ending. Tyler would execute Ryan, would humiliate me, would lock me in this tower for the rest of my life, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. They called me traitor before I even understood I had committed treason. The summons came within minutes, a sharp knock on my chamber door, then Tyler's personal guard entering, without waiting for permission. His face was stone, his voice flat. "The king demands your presence in the throne room. Immediately. No, your majesty. No courtesy. Just commands." I was already condemned. I dressed quickly, my hands shaking so badly I could barely fasten the buttons of my gown. I chose the simplest dress I owned, deep blue wool, no embroidery, no jewels. If I was going to be judged, I would not dress like a queen who deserved judgment. I would dress like Kate, just Kate, but I braided my silver white hair in the royal style. Some habits die hard. The corridors were packed with people. Servants pressed against walls to let me pass, their eyes averted. Nobles clustered in doorways, whispering behind raised hands. I heard fragments as I walked, saw her, in the forest, kissing a commoner, magic everywhere. The scandal. My heart hammered against my ribs. The 2 seamstresses had talked. Of course they had. Gossip was currency in kingdoms, and they had just found gold. The throne room doors stood open. Guards flanked the entrance, their expressions carefully neutral. As I approached, I heard the sound of hundreds of voices inside. The entire court, it seemed, had assembled to witness my humiliation. I stepped through the doors and the noise died instantly. The great hall was packed. Nobles filled the benches along the walls. Servants crowded the galleries above. Royal advisors stood in a semicircle around the throne. And there, seated on the raised dais, was Tyler. He wore his crown and his finest robes. He had dressed for ceremony, for spectacle. This was not going to be a private discussion. This was going to be a public execution of my character, if not my body. The lunar scepter stood in its place beside the throne, glowing faintly with the magic I had poured into it just yesterday morning. The magic Tyler thought was his. I walked down the center aisle with my head high. Every eye in the room followed me. I heard the whispers start again, a susurrus like wind through dead leaves. Traitor, adulteress, disgrace. I reached the base of the dais and stopped, waited. Queens do not kneel, even in disgrace. Tyler stared down at me with cold fury. When he spoke, his voice carried through the hall, magically amplified so everyone could hear. "Kate Bennett," he said, using my maiden name as if our marriage had already been dissolved. "Luna Branca, Queen of Ashford, you stand accused of adultery, of treason, of abandoning your duties and dishonoring your vows. How do you answer?" I opened my mouth to speak, but Tyler raised his hand, cutting me off. "Let me tell the court what you have done," he continued, his voice dripping with barely controlled rage. "4 days ago, you fled this castle in disguise, hiding yourself like a common thief. You abandoned your responsibilities, your crown, your husband. While the kingdom searched for you in terror, fearing you had been kidnapped or murdered, you were in the forest, with a man, a beta woodsman. And you kissed him!" Gasps rippled through the crowd. I saw noblewomen clutch their chests in shock. I saw men shake their heads in disgust. "She threw herself at him," said a shrill voice from the side of the hall. One of the seamstresses, stepping forward eagerly, drunk on attention. "We saw it. We were gathering herbs in the forest, and we saw the queen, dressed like a servant, trying to hide, and she kissed him. Magic exploded everywhere. Silver light and wind, and the trees glowed. It was unnatural." The second seamstress joined in, her voice equally excited. "She ran away after, like she knew she'd done something terrible, like a guilty thief." "Is this true?" Tyler demanded, looking at me. "Did you kiss this man?" "Yes," I said. My voice came out steady, stronger than I felt. "Yes, I kissed him, but not the way they're describing. There is no but," Tyler cut in. "You are married. You are queen. You kissed another man. That is adultery. That is betrayal. That is treason against your king and your kingdom." "He saved my life." The words burst out of me. "I was attacked by a witch in the forest. I nearly died. He found me, unconscious and bleeding, and he took me to his cabin and cared for me for 3 days. The kiss was gratitude. Nothing more. I was thanking him for gratitude," Tyler repeated, his lip curling. "You expect this court to believe you were simply grateful?" "It's the truth. The truth," Tyler said slowly, savoring each word, "is that my queen is an adulteress, a woman who cannot control herself, a disgrace to this crown and this kingdom." He stood, descending the dais steps slowly, deliberately. When he reached me, he stopped close enough that only I could hear his next words. "You have humiliated me," he whispered. "For 7 years I have tolerated your presence. I have given you status, protection, a crown. And this is how you repay me? By running to the forest to fuck a commoner?" I started, but he had already turned away, addressing the court again in his amplified voice. "Bring in the woodsman," Tyler commanded. The doors at the side of the hall opened. Guards entered, dragging someone between them. My heart stopped. Ryan. They had chained him, heavy iron manacles on his wrists and ankles, the chains short enough that he could barely walk. His face was bruised. Someone had beaten him. His shirt was torn, but his eyes, when they met mine across the hall, were clear, unafraid. "Ryan Callahan," Tyler announced. "A beta woodsman, a nobody, and yet he dared to defile the Queen of Ashford." Ryan said nothing. He stood straight despite the chains, despite the bruises, and he looked at me with such sorrow that I felt something break inside my chest. "For the crime of adultery with the Queen," Tyler continued, "Ryan Callahan will be executed at dawn tomorrow." "No!" The scream tore out of me before I could stop it. I lunged toward Ryan, but guards caught me, holding me back. "No! Tyler, please! He did nothing wrong. I kissed him. If anyone is guilty, it's me. Please!" I was begging. I hated myself for it, but I could not stop. I could not let Ryan die for my mistake. Tyler looked at me with contempt. "Yes, you are guilty, but he accepted your kiss. He allowed it. He participated in your betrayal. He must pay the price. Please," I whispered. "Please, Tyler. I'll do anything. I'll never leave the castle again. I'll be perfect. I'll be silent. Just don't kill him. Please." Take him to the dungeons, Tyler said, ignoring me completely. And someone shut the queen up. The guards began dragging Ryan away. He looked at me one last time, and I saw him mouth 2 words. I'm sorry. He had nothing to be sorry for. This was my fault. I had kissed him. I had brought this disaster down on both of us. And now he would die because of me. Something inside me shattered. I had endured 7 years of humiliation, 7 years of silence, 7 years of pouring my magic into that cursed scepter so Tyler could pretend to be powerful. 7 years of being blamed for his failures, dismissed in council meetings, eating alone in my chambers while he dined with his advisors and his women. 7 years of pretending everything was fine, that this was my duty, that I deserved nothing better. And now Tyler would murder the only man who had ever treated me with kindness, the only man who had seen me, really seen me, in 7 years. My mate, my true mate. No, not this time. I stopped struggling against the guards, went very still, and I let the magic rise. It started as a tingling in my fingertips, then heat in my chest, then pressure building behind my eyes, in my throat, in every cell of my body. The magic I had been suppressing for years, the power I had been draining into that scepter every morning, came roaring back. Silver light began to glow beneath my skin. The guards holding me gasped and stepped back. The hall fell silent, all eyes turning toward me. I felt my hair lift as if in an invisible wind, felt my eyes burn silver white, felt the transformation calling to me, the shift I had only completed a handful of times in my life, the true form that marked me as Luna Branca. Kate, Tyler said warningly. Don't. I shifted. The transformation happened in a heartbeat. My human body dissolved into light and reformed as my wolf, massive, white as new snow, with eyes like twin moons. I was twice the size of a normal wolf, my fur crackling with lunar magic. Power radiated from me in visible waves. The great hall filled with blinding silver light. I heard screams, heard people scrambling backward, but I did not care about them. I shifted back to human form, still dressed, thank the moon goddess. Magic had some courtesies, but I kept the power burning through me. My voice, when I spoke, echoed through the hall with unnatural resonance. Every person in the castle could hear me. You want to know the truth? I said, looking directly at Tyler. Let me tell you the truth. Tyler's face had gone pale. He had never seen me shift before, had never seen the full extent of my power. He took a step backward. For 7 years, I continued, my voice shaking with rage, I have served this kingdom faithfully. Every single morning before dawn, I stand in this hall and I pour my magic into that scepter. My lunar magic. My power. Not his. I pointed at Tyler. The court gasped. That lunar scepter is not a tool for the king to wield. It is a prison for my magic. Every spell he casts, every ward he reinforces, every bit of power this court praises him for, it comes from me. From my magic that I drain into that cursed object so he can pretend to be strong. That's a lie. Tyler shouted, but his voice cracked. Is it? I strode toward the throne, magic crackling around me. Tyler stumbled backward, but I did not stop. I seized the lunar scepter from its stand. It blazed even brighter in my hands, recognizing its source. This contains 7 years of my power, 7 years of me giving myself away, 7 years of you stealing credit for my strength. Guards! Tyler yelled. Stop her! The guards did not move. They stared at me with something like awe or fear. I did not care which. And the air, I continued, my voice breaking. The court whispers that I cannot give you children, that I have complications, that I'm defective, but that's another lie. Isn't it, Tyler? Tyler's face flushed dark red. Kate, stop. You've never touched me. The words exploded out of me. Not once in 7 years. Not once have you come to my bed. Not once have you even tried to give me a child. You blame me publicly for your own sterility, for your own inability, for your own refusal. You make me look like a failure to hide your shame. The court erupted in shocked murmurs. I saw nobles exchanging glances, saw the Duchess who had asked about heirs looking horrified, saw Tyler's advisors pale. You have psychologically tortured me for years, I said, quieter now but no less intense, made me feel worthless, made me believe I was the problem, made me small and silent and invisible, and I let you, because I thought it was my duty, because I thought a queen was supposed to sacrifice herself for her kingdom. I looked around at the assembled court, at the nobles who had dismissed me, at the advisors who had spoken over me, at the servants who had pitied me in silence. But I was wrong, I said. A queen should be respected. A queen should be valued. A queen should be loved. And I have been none of those things here. I turned back to Tyler. He had retreated all the way to his throne, his hands gripping the armrests. I have wasted 7 years on you, I said. No more. And I broke the lunar scepter. It shattered in my hands like glass. Shards of moonstone and silver exploded outward in a wave of pure magical force. Every window in the great hall burst simultaneously. The chandeliers swung wildly, candles extinguishing. The blast threw Tyler backward into his throne with enough force to crack the stone beneath it. And my magic, 7 years of accumulated power, flooded back into me. I gasped as it hit. It was like drowning in reverse, like breathing after being underwater for too long. The power filled every vein, every bone, every cell. I felt complete for the first time since my wedding day, whole, overflowing. I glowed so brightly people had to shield their eyes. When the light faded, the great hall was silent, except for the sound of falling glass. I stood in the center of a circle of destruction, shards of the lunar scepter scattered around my feet like broken promises. Tyler stared at me from his throne, his face a mask of shock and fury and fear. I turned to address the court one final time. I, Kate Bennett, Luna Branca, renounce my position as Queen of Ashford, I declared. My voice rang clear and strong. I will no longer serve a kingdom that never valued me. I will no longer sacrifice myself for people who never saw me. I am leaving, and I am taking Ryan Callahan with me. You cannot, Tyler started, but I cut him off with a gesture. Silver light flared, and his voice died in his throat, magically silenced. I can, I said, and I will. Seize her, Tyler finally managed to choke out, his voice returning. Guards! Kill the woodsman! Stop her! The guards moved. I had expected that, but I was done being compliant, done being controlled. I raised my hands and lunar magic exploded from my palms in a wave. The guards flew backward, crashing into walls with enough force to dent the stone. Their swords melted in their hands, metal turning liquid, and then freezing solid in twisted, useless shapes. Their armor cracked and shattered like ice. I did not kill them. I did not want blood on my hands, but I made sure they could not stand, could not fight, could not stop me. The royal advisors tried next, 3 court mages, stepping forward with staffs raised, incanting defensive spells. I dispersed their magic with a flick of my wrist. Their staffs exploded into splinters. One of them fell to his knees, his power completely drained. I was not fighting them. I was demonstrating exactly how much power I had been giving away, how much they had been taking from me without ever acknowledging it. Even Tyler tried to attack me. He pulled a dagger from his belt and lunged. I froze him mid-step, ice crawling up his legs, his torso, his arms. He stood immobilized 3 feet from me, his eyes wide with terror. I leaned close enough that only he could hear. I gave you everything, I whispered. My magic, my loyalty, my life, and you gave me nothing in return. Not love, not respect, not even basic kindness. You do not deserve me. You never did. I released the ice. Tyler collapsed, gasping to the floor. Then I ran. Through the throne room, past nobles who scrambled out of my way, down the corridor toward the dungeons. Guards tried to stop me. I blasted them aside. Doors were locked. I melted the locks. Advisors shouted orders. I ignored them. The dungeon doors were reinforced iron, 3 inches thick. I placed my palms against the metal and pushed. Silver light flooded the hinges. The doors exploded inward with a sound like thunder. Ryan was chained to the wall in the first cell, exactly where they had left him. His head jerked up as I entered, his eyes wide. Kate, don't, I said, crossing to him in 3 strides. I touched the chains, and they melted away like wax in flame. Don't say anything. Just trust me. Ryan staggered as his weight came off the chains. I caught him, steadying him, and for a moment we just stood there, his bruised face inches from mine. If you leave with me, he said quietly, you can never come back. They'll hunt you, brand you a traitor. You'll lose everything. I smiled. For the first time in 7 years, I smiled with genuine joy. I've already lost everything that mattered, I said. Now I'm choosing what I want to keep. Ryan stared at me for a heartbeat. Then he took my hand. We ran, through the dungeons, up the stairs, into the corridor. Shouts echoed behind us, guards rallying, advisors organizing a pursuit. But we were faster. We burst through the castle doors into the courtyard and stopped. The 500 wolves were still there, an army of shifters, massive and silent, surrounding the castle. As Ryan and I emerged, every head turned toward us, 500 pairs of golden eyes fixed on us with preternatural focus. Ryan squeezed my hand. "When you kissed me," he said, slightly breathless. "When my alpha power awakened, every pack in the region felt it. The moon goddess marked us as mates, as a true alpha pair, and they came. Came for what?" I asked. "To witness, to protect, to follow." He looked at the wolves, then back at me. "They're not here for Tyler. They're here for us." As if in response, the wolves moved. The sea of fur and muscle parted, creating a clear path through the center. An honor guard, an escort. Behind us, Tyler and his guards poured into the courtyard. "Stop them!" Tyler screamed. "Kill them both!" The wolves turned as one. 500 shifters, all baring their teeth. The guards stumbled to a halt. Tyler went very pale. Ryan pulled me forward. We walked through the path the wolves had created, and as we passed, each shifter bowed its head in recognition. Not submission, respect. At the edge of the courtyard, where the castle grounds met the forest, I looked back one final time. I saw Tyler standing on the steps, his face twisted with impotent rage. I saw the broken windows of the great hall. I saw the wreckage I had left behind. I felt no regret. Ryan tugged my hand gently. "Ready?" I looked at him. This woodsman, this unexpected mate, this man who had shown me kindness when I had forgotten what kindness felt like. His eyes were gold now, alpha gold, but they held the same gentle concern they had in the cabin. "Yes," I said. "I'm ready." We ran into the forest. The wolves followed, a tide of silver and gray and black. Behind us, the castle erupted in chaos, shouts and screams and the sound of Tyler bellowing orders that no one would obey. Ahead of us, freedom. As we disappeared into the trees, I felt something shift inside my chest, a pull, deep and primal, connecting me to Ryan like an invisible thread. The mate bond, fully formed now, no longer suppressed or denied. I glanced at him. He felt it too. I saw it in the way his breath caught, the way his hand tightened on mine. "Kate," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "What did we just do?" I laughed. I could not help it. After 7 years of silence, of submission, of being small, I laughed loud and wild and free. "We chose ourselves," I said. "For the first time in our lives, we chose ourselves. And we kept running, into the forest, into the unknown, into whatever came next, together. Freedom tastes like snow and pine, and the scent of the man running beside me, and I would burn 1,000 kingdoms to keep it." We ran for 3 days straight, not constantly. We stopped to rest, to eat what Ryan could hunt or forage, to catch our breath when the altitude made our lungs burn. But we kept moving, always north, always deeper into the wilderness, putting as much distance as possible between us and Ashford Kingdom. The 500 wolves followed, not in a tight formation, but spread out through the forest like shadows, maintaining a perimeter around us, protecting us. I did not command them, did not even speak to them, but I felt their presence like a steady heartbeat in the back of my mind, and I knew Ryan felt it too. They chose to follow, Ryan said on the second night, as we made camp in a cave sheltered from the wind. When the mate bond formed between us, when my alpha power awakened, every pack leader in the region felt it, felt the moon goddess mark us as true mates, and they came to witness, to honor it. "Will they stay?" I asked, watching the distant shapes of wolves moving through the trees. "As long as we let them." Ryan fed sticks into our small fire. "But they're not here out of obligation, Kate. They're here because you chose freedom, and that choice inspired them." I thought about that as I fell asleep that night, wrapped in Ryan's arms for warmth, the fire crackling low. I had not meant to inspire anyone. I had only meant to survive, to save the man I loved, to stop sacrificing myself for people who never valued the sacrifice. But perhaps that was inspiration enough. On the 4th day, we reached a valley so remote I doubted any human had set foot there in centuries. It was protected on 3 sides by mountains, their peaks still snow-covered despite the approach of spring. A frozen lake occupied the center, its surface mirror-smooth. Pine forests climbed the slopes. The air tasted clean and sharp and empty of anything except wind and stone and sky. "Here," I said, stopping at the edge of the valley. This is where we stay. Ryan looked at me. You're sure? It's isolated, far from any village or trade route. We'd be completely alone. Good, I said. I never want to see another castle as long as I live. He smiled and squeezed my hand. We made our first camp beside the frozen lake. The wolves spread through the valley, claiming dens and territories, settling in as naturally as if they had always lived here. Over the following weeks, more shifters arrived, drawn by word of mouth, by rumors of a Luna who had renounced her throne, by the pull of something they could not quite name but recognized as important. We did not count them. We did not organize them into hierarchies or demand fealty. They simply came, and stayed, and built. But something was happening to me. Something I did not understand at first. It started as subtle changes. My scent shifted. Ryan noticed first, his nose more sensitive than mine. Where I had smelled of winter air and moonlight, now I carried something warmer, softer, sweeter. My senses sharpened. I could hear conversations from across the valley, track animals by scent alone, feel the mood of the pack like weather against my skin, and the mate bond with Ryan grew stronger. I felt it constantly now, a thread connecting us even when we were apart. I felt his emotions as echoes of my own. When he was happy, I felt warmth bloom in my chest. When he was worried, my stomach tightened. We were becoming one creature with two bodies. One morning, about a month after we arrived in the valley, I woke to find Ryan staring at me with an expression I could not read. What? I asked, self-conscious. Your eyes, he said softly. They're not silver anymore. They're blue. Human blue. I scrambled to the lake, breaking through the thin ice at the edge to see my reflection. He was right. My eyes, which had been silver white since birth, the mark of lunar magic, the sign of Luna Branca, had changed to deep blue. Ordinary. Human. The magic. I started, panicking, reaching for the power that had always lived inside me, but it was still there, coiled and ready. I had not lost my magic. Something else had changed. You're becoming Omega, Ryan said from behind me. He crouched beside me at the water's edge. Your biology is shifting. The mate bond is completing the transformation. But I was Alpha, I protested. Luna Branca, the strongest magical bloodline in generations. How can I be Omega? You were never truly Alpha, Ryan said gently. You were constrained, forced into a role that didn't fit, drained daily until you forgot what you really were. Tyler needed you to be strong, so you made yourself strong. But that wasn't your true nature. I stared at my reflection, at eyes that were no longer moonlit silver, but warm, human blue, at a face that looked softer somehow, more open. Are you afraid? Ryan asked. I thought about it, thought about 7 years of being Luna Branca, powerful and untouchable, and utterly alone. Thought about what I had gained in the month since leaving. Peace, laughter, Ryan's arms around me at night, the simple joy of waking up without immediately draining myself into a cursed scepter. No, I said. I'm not afraid. I've never felt more like myself. And it was true. The power was still mine, but now I carried it lightly, without the crushing weight of expectation. I was Omega, not in weakness, in wholeness. That night, we stopped to rest beside the frozen lake. The moon rose, full and impossibly bright, turning the ice to silver glass. Ryan built a fire on the shore. We sat close, shoulders touching, watching the flames dance. I need to tell you something, Ryan said suddenly. His voice was rough, nervous. I turned to look at him. His profile was outlined in moonlight, strong and steady and beautiful. I've loved you since the moment I found you bleeding in that forest, he said, staring at the fire. I didn't know you were queen. I didn't care. I loved the woman who tried to chop wood and nearly took off her own foot, who laughed at my terrible poetry, who looked at the stars like she was seeing them for the first time, who ate my cooking and told me it was the best meal she'd ever had, even though we both knew it wasn't. He turned to me, his eyes burning gold. I loved Kate, just Kate, and I will love you until the day I die. Tears slipped down my cheeks, hot against my cold skin. I've loved you since the second day in your cabin, I whispered. When you read me poetry you'd written, when you asked nothing of me except to be myself, when you saw me, really saw me, for the first time in 7 years. Ryan reached up and wiped my tears away with his thumb. Kate Bennett, he said softly, will you accept me, not as subject to queen, not as beta to alpha, but as mate to mate, as equal, as partner, as the person I choose and who chooses me. The moon goddess tradition, the oldest vow, spoken under the full moon. A promise that had nothing to do with politics or bloodlines or duty, just two souls choosing each other. Yes, I said. Yes. Always. Yes. Ryan stood and pulled me to my feet. While I watched, he gathered furs from our camp, thick pelts we'd been given by pack members as gifts, and spread them beside the lake. Then he walked into the forest and returned with his arms full of winter flowers he must have been collecting all day. Snowdrops and hellebore and early crocuses. He scattered them over the furs until the makeshift bed looked like something from a fairy tale. The moon reflected on the ice. Snow began to fall, soft and gentle, each flake catching the firelight and the moonlight and glittering like diamonds. The forest around us was silent except for the crackle of fire and the distant sound of wolves settling in for the night. It was the most beautiful place I had ever seen. Ryan held out his hand. I took it. We came together slowly, reverently, as if we were performing a ceremony, and perhaps we were. The mate bond hummed between us, growing stronger with every touch, every kiss, every breath. When Ryan's lips found mine, the world dissolved into sensation, his hands in my hair, my fingers tracing the muscles of his back, the heat of our bodies against the cold night air. "Are you sure?" he whispered against my mouth. "I have never been more sure of anything in my life," I said. We made love under the full moon, on a bed of furs and flowers beside a frozen lake, and when Ryan bit my neck, the claiming mark, the mate's bond made permanent, the entire valley blazed with silver light. My magic responded to his, pouring out of me in waves. The trees glowed, the ice cracked and reformed in patterns like frost on windows. The air shimmered, and 500 wolves howled in celebration, their voices rising to the moon in harmony. I felt the bond snap fully into place, not like chains, like coming home, like finding the other half of my soul I had not known was missing. Magic and instinct and love braided together until I could not tell where I ended and Ryan began. When the light faded and we lay tangled in furs and flower petals, Ryan traced the mark on my neck, a silver scar in the shape of a crescent moon, and smiled. "Mine," he said softly. "Yours," I agreed. "And you're mine. Always." I had never felt such peace, such rightness. I was no longer queen. I was Omega. I was mate. I was free. Spring turned to summer, summer to autumn. We built a life in that hidden valley, stone by stone, day by day. Ryan and I constructed a cabin, larger than his old one, sturdy enough to withstand mountain winters. The wolves helped, dragging logs, clearing ground, hunting to keep us fed while we worked. We led together, Ryan and I, not through command or hierarchy, but through partnership. He hunted. I healed, my lunar magic particularly suited to mending injuries, curing sickness. He built. I protected, setting wards around the valley that would alert us to any threat. We made decisions together, resolved disputes together, celebrated victories together. The pack flourished, not ruled by force, but by choice, by respect, by the simple fact that we had chosen freedom and they had chosen to share it with us. I was happy, truly, deeply happy in a way I had not known was possible. Then, on a frost-bright morning in late autumn, I woke feeling strange. Not sick, not exactly, just different. My breasts were tender. My sense of smell was impossibly heightened. I could distinguish individual herbs in the tea Ryan was brewing across the cabin, and when I stood too quickly, the room tilted. Ryan looked up from the fire, concerned. "Kate, are you all right?" I opened my mouth to say yes, then stopped, because I knew. My body knew. The magic knew. "I'm pregnant," I whispered. Ryan froze, the tea kettle forgotten in his hand. "What?" "I'm pregnant." I said it louder, testing the words. They felt true. Right. Twins, I think. I can feel them. 2 little sparks of life. Ryan set down the kettle very carefully. Then he crossed to me in 3 strides, lifted me off my feet, and spun me around, laughing with pure, unrestrained joy. I laughed too, dizzy and elated and terrified and happier than I had ever been. "Twins," Ryan said, setting me down gently, his hands cupping my face. "Kate, we're having twins. Are you happy?" I asked, suddenly needing to hear it. "Happy?" He laughed again. "I'm everything. I'm complete. Kate, you've given me everything I never knew I needed." The wolves celebrated for 3 days. I had not announced it formally, but somehow the entire pack knew within hours. They brought gifts, pelts for blankets, herbs for tea, carved toys for babies not yet born. They howled at dawn and dusk in songs of joy. Young pups played at my feet as if already protecting their future packmates. I had everything I had ever wanted. Not power, not a throne, but family, love, a mate who cherished me, children growing inside me, safe and loved before they even drew breath. As winter set in and my belly grew round with new life, I spent long hours sitting by the fire, watching snow fall outside the cabin windows, and thinking about my journey. I had spent 7 years believing my worth came from what I could give, from sacrifice, from being needed. I poured my magic into Tyler's scepter every morning and told myself I was serving the kingdom, being a good queen, doing my duty. But duty without respect is not service. It is slavery, and sacrifice without reciprocation is not love. It is self-destruction. I had been powerful, yes, but I had been powerful for someone else. My magic made Tyler look strong. My silence made him look wise. My invisibility made him look generous, as if he had chosen a wife who demanded nothing because he was so magnanimous, not because I had learned that demanding anything earned me nothing but humiliation. I had made myself smaller and smaller, year by year, until I nearly disappeared. But worth does not come from what you give away. Worth comes from knowing you deserve to receive, deserve to be loved, deserve to be happy, deserve to take up space and breathe and exist without apology. I was not too much. Tyler was too little, too small in character, too limited in empathy, too constrained by his own insecurities to see the gift he had been given. I was not broken. I was constrained, forced into a shape that did not fit. And the moment I stopped trying to fit, the moment I chose myself, chose freedom, chose love, everything changed. I learned that sometimes the most powerful thing a woman can do is walk away, leave the castle, break the scepter, renounce the crown, say no to a life that is killing her by degrees. I learned that true strength is not enduring abuse. True strength is recognizing that you deserve better and having the courage to claim it. One evening in deep winter, with Ryan beside me and our children moving inside my belly, I spoke into the darkness. If anyone is listening, I said softly, if there are women out there trapped the way I was, let me tell you something. Ryan's arm tightened around me, listening. If you are unseen, demand to be seen, not by shrinking yourself further, but by taking up space, by speaking louder, by refusing to be invisible. If you are undervalued, walk away. You cannot force someone to appreciate you. You cannot sacrifice enough to make them love you. Save your energy for people who already know your worth. If you are told you are not enough, know that you are more than enough. You are everything. The problem is not with you. The problem is with people who are too small to see your value. Do not wait for recognition that will never come. Do not shrink yourself to fit spaces too small for your soul. Do not sacrifice your happiness for people who would never sacrifice theirs for you. Choose yourself, always, even when it is hard, even when it is terrifying, even when the entire world tells you that choosing yourself is selfish. It is not selfish to survive. It is not selfish to thrive. It is not selfish to love yourself enough to walk away from what is killing you. Choose yourself and build a life worth living. The fire crackled. Snow fell. Ryan pressed a kiss to my temple. That's beautiful, he murmured. It's true, I said, and I want every woman who feels the way I felt to know it. Spring came eventually, as it always does. The ice melted, green returned to the valley, and on a morning when the sun rose bright and warm, with the sound of birdsong in the air and the smell of flowers on the wind, I gave birth. Twin girls, perfect and healthy, with downy dark hair like Ryan's, and eyes that shifted between his gold and my silver. They were both. They were neither. They were entirely themselves. We named them Hope and Dawn, because that is what they represented. A new beginning, a new world, a future we chose instead of endured. Now, on a summer evening with the sun setting gold over the mountains, I stand in the doorway of the cabin we built. My hands rest on my still round belly. The twins are only 3 months old, still learning to hold up their heads, still small enough to fit one in each of Ryan's arms. Inside, I can hear him singing. A lullaby he composed while I was pregnant, simple and sweet. Sleep, little wolves, the moon is rising. Sleep, little loves, the stars are bright. Your mother is strong, your father is watchful, and you are safe through all the night. The 500 wolves rest in the clearing outside our cabin, content and loyal. Some have left over the months, called back to their own packs. Others have arrived. The number changes, but the spirit remains. This is a pack built on choice, not force. On respect, not fear. The moon rises over the mountains, full and bright. My power hums in my veins. Not drained, not depleted, but whole and ready and entirely mine. I smile. I was a queen who lost a kingdom and gained a world. I lost a crown that never fit and gained a family that loves me. I lost a husband who never saw me and gained a mate who sees nothing else. I lost 7 years to silence and sacrifice and gained the rest of my life to joy and choice. I am Kate Bennett. I am Luna Branca. I am Omega. I am mate. I am mother. But most importantly, I am free. And freedom, I have learned, is worth more than any throne.